In conversation with Brian Livingston. Brian Livingston was born and raised in Marietta, Georgia. He earned his BA in history at Clemson University before settling off to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail in 2013 through a name Mr. Frodo. After his thru-hike, he started law school at Washington and Lee University School of Law, graduating in 2016. After 5 years as a trial attorney, he hung up the wingtip to focus on writing and spending more time outdoors. He resides in Charleston, XC, with his wife and son. His debut novel, The Habit of Squirrels, is inspired by his experiences and encounters on the Appalachian Trail. His second novel, Folkston, is inspired by his time in the courtroom. And in today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost joy, pleasure, excitement, and thrill to have on the show today, Brian Livingston. How are you doing today, Brian? Welcome on the show.
I'm doing great. I really appreciate being here. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, really. I've been looking forward to this, and it's quite a joy to have you on the show today. I'm excited we're here to sit down and talk about your amazing body of literature work. So I want to say once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So, Brian, I need to first say that, reading through Foxton and Amazon sounds to me to be quite amazing, quite thrilling, quite inspiring, quite heavy, and quite very impressive. And I'd like you to tell us about the making of this novel, how it came to be. If you can run us through the background, the foundation of the making of it, if you can run us through that time you set back together and realize that you need to tell a story and even title it Foxton. If you can tell us about the making of it, that'd be very great.
Of course. So, Folkston follows a young attorney from a city called Charleston, South Carolina,
Mm,
um, who travels up to a fictional town of Folkston in very rural South Carolina in the mountains for his first trial.
mm,
And he gets put up at a seedy motel. And so as the trial's going along, he's,
yeah.
as you'd expect, learning a lot through his first trial, for better or for worse. And then he's
Mm,
also befriending the people that he's staying with at the hotel. And
mm,
yeah, that's sort of the driving tension in the book is, as which way is he going to go as he's learning more about the world. And it's inspired or informed by I was a prosecutor in sort of a Folkston-esque town in the rural South
wow.
Carolina mountains for about 3 years.
Wow.
And in doing that, that was my first job out of law school. And I grew up in Atlanta in the suburbs. So it was a real culture shock for me
Mm,
and a big eye opener for like, what I thought the world was to how the actual world works. And then after being a prosecutor for about 3 years, I was a in private practice doing defense work for about 3 years, including a year in
wow.
Charleston. So really focused and drew from both sides of my legal career in terms of like the
Mm,
prosecuting, providing the setting and informing a lot of what what happens throughout the novel and the people that he meets. And
mm,
then doing the defense work, sort of providing the framework for the trial and the reason that he's up there and just sort of his mindset and what he was expecting as he traveled up to Folkestone.
mm. Oh, wow. I must say that's such an amazing one, really. That's such a lovely, quite beautiful, impressive, and lovely ride into becoming a writer. I like the fact how you able to run us through the making of First Thing. Sounds to me to be quite beautiful. And if you have a copy of the book there, I would like you to show to the camera just so it's
Yeah, of
what it
course.
looks like.
Yep,
That's
here's
a
the
beautiful
beautiful cover of Folkestone. I've had the
one.
same cover designer for both of my books,
Wow.
and I think I'll stick with her forever because I love the way that she works and what turns out.
That's an amazing cover. I think there's a story even in the artwork in front of the cover. Because I think to me, most book cover have their own stories to tell that relate to the story inside the book or even slightly different from what is inside the book. So that's a lovely cover. Quite
Yeah,
well
thank you so
done.
much. Really
Yeah,
proud of it.
absolutely. And also, Foxton's slippery slope from glamorous legal career dream to arch realities of the law. It feels so real. I wanted to ask you, how did your own experience, as a trial lawyer inform Ethan's journey in this novel?
It provided just about everything. And then, like I said, like just coming in, being fresh out of law school, being ambitious, and going into a place that fully unfamiliar with sort of the culture, and just I'd never lived in a rural area before, and
Mm,
just finding out about a whole new way of life and a whole new way of viewing things. And I assume it's everywhere, but in the United States, like the
mm,
way rural areas picture themselves sort of in the framework of the country, and then the way cities view themselves is entirely different. And so
wow.
I was trying to capture how that experience was for me, like suddenly
Mm,
being the outsider and suddenly, just getting more insight into just how other people view the world and the problems that they're facing and the reasons that they do the things that they
mm,
do, even if it seems, you know, illogical at first if you're coming from a different side of it.
mm. Oh, wow. That's an amazing one, really. I need to say that's quite a beautiful one. I mean, I've been enjoying your answer to this question, really. Quite a beautiful one, talking about Ethan's journey in Folkston. Now, also, the novel explore social hierarchies and community divides. Which relationship in the book surprised you as you wrote it? I wanted to ask you as a writer, ask the author of the book, which particular relationship in the novel surprised you most as you wrote it, and why? And also, is there a particular character you relate to more than another?
It was really fun to watch Ethan befriend the other sort of residents at the motel where he was staying. There's
Mm,
Bobby and
yeah,
Frank and Garth, and they're all different ages and have different things going on. It was fun to sort of figure out how, like, what's connecting them and what are they, you know, why are they enjoying hanging out with each other.
yeah,
But the probably the relationship that surprised me the most, Ethan is the third attorney on his case. So there's Sterling Colt, who's sort of the head honcho, really calling the shots. And then there's another older attorney. She's probably about 40 or 45, but she's experienced, named Terry Nelson. And she's
mm,
kind of already disillusioned, but she's like, yeah, as the novel goes out, you see that she cares for Ethan more.
wow,
And that was not my initial intention with that character, but to see her and Ethan sort of interact, and her trying to sort of be the buffer between Sterling Colt, who's kind of rough with Ethan, was just a neat little detail of the
mm,
book that, like I said, I wasn't expecting. And it was fun to
mm,
watch that relationship blossom. Another character that I think I related with, just her. Yeah,
mm,
I relate to Terry Nelson a good bit. I'm not sure
mm,
where I froze or where not, but she's on the trial team that Ethan's on. There's Sterling Colt, who's sort of first chair leading the trial, and then
yeah,
there's another older attorney named Terry Nelson. And while Sterling's kind of rough with Ethan and kind of disrespectful, she's much kinder to him and has these small moments throughout that
mm,
she's offering mentorship in her own way, even though she's not as vigorous or as yeah, I mean as intense of a presence as Sterling Colt. And I think she is more modeled off sort of
mm,
the a type of attorney that I was when I was practicing. And her view of what she's doing and just it sort of being a job rather than like a real profession and identity. Uh,
mm.
so she and I have stayed in touch
Wow.
since the book is finished.
Wow, that's a great one as well. I love your take on that. That's quite amazing. And also wanted to ask you, Brian, because law and justice can feel abstract until they intersect with real people's story. I wanted to ask you, how did balancing legal procedure with personal narrative shaped your writing in this novel? And also, do reader ever assume your main character are versions of you? How do you usually respond to that?
The junction of law and justice is sort of to me the crux of this book. As Ethan's befriending the other residents at the motel, one of them is named
Yeah.
Bobby, and you come to find out that he has an addiction problem and that he has a
Mm,
legal record or criminal record. And just you find out more about what leads to all that, and
yeah.
without trying to take a side on how anything the problems that people can get themselves into
into.
sort of before they even have a chance to figure out that they're actually making mistakes and getting themselves into
Mm,
problems that are gonna really have negative impacts on their whole life. Um, so that's part of what Ethan is figuring out because he comes up there, he's a lawyer, he thinks he has everything figured out, and then he's just never seen it really applied to real life and real people.
mm,
For the second question, I get a lot that when the characters that I write sound a lot like me,
wow.
particularly The Habits of Squirrels, my first book.
Mm,
Gabe Jenkins, the lead character, has a lot of elements of me in there to the extent that I had
mm,
to make him much older just to provide some sort of separation between us and give me a little
mm,
clearer view of him. In Folkston, I think there's more characters that I sort of wish I was. Like Garth Quattlebaum, who's another resident at the motel, is
mm,
he's a big personality. He stands up for himself and he makes a lot of jokes, and it's just like a big sort of goofy view on the world, but it's all centered sort of on a very set idea of right and wrong that he won't
mm.
waver from, and I really respect him for that. So that's kind of how I wish I was.
Wow. That is such an amazing, and I love your answer to that particular
Thank you.
question. That is really impressive, quite awesome, and quite lovely. But sometimes, I was interviewing an author yesterday, and she was like, "Yeah, I think sometimes it might be a bit of an author's life in the work that they produce. Not so many times, though. Yeah, but on most cases, 80% of authors, per se, and which I think it's quite beautiful, really. Thank you for your
Yeah,
lovely answer to that. I also
thank
wanted
you.
to ask you, Brian, because every book has its tough moment. What was the most challenging part of writing Foxton for you? And did anything feel natural this time compared to your debut, if in any way?
So, a really challenging thing about Folkson is for my first book, The Habits of Squirrels, it's a hiking novel, and it takes place entirely sort of on a trail outside of the world.
Mm,
And then, as you probably picked up on, Folkston takes place in, it's a fictional town, but it's a very real place, and it has a lot of really real issues facing the world, just between poverty and addiction and criminal justice.
mm,
And it was really intimidating to write about topics like that. So I had to really do a lot of research and a lot of thought and reach out to, other attorneys and just people that I've worked with through over the years to try and make sure that I was writing about those in like a respectful and useful way.
mm,
And then
yeah,
folks deals with methamphetamine addiction, which is really an epidemic through that part of the world.
mm,
And I had to do a lot of research to make sure that I was writing about that in an honest
yeah,
and I guess useful, respectful way. So with The Habits of Squirrels, my first book, it took forever to write because I wasn't really comfortable with story structure. So like I
mm,
got a draft of it, and then I went through with that with a book called The Story Grid, which is all about story structure and takes it really down to minute detail. And I
mm,
gridded out the book and tried to have everything sort of peak and flow and be logical and keep tension
yeah,
going in the right places. And with Folkston, all that sort of stuff felt like it came much more naturally, and I did not have to do like
mm,
the big structural changes that I had to do to my
mm.
first novel.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference. I mean, as
Yeah,
time goes on, you begin to adjust gradually to the storytelling, to, this, that, so many techniques of literature, what need to be incorporated, what need to be added, what I need to change in my next novel, what I need to add in my upcoming novel, where I need to step up a bit, all of those adjustment tends to come as one progresses as a career in writing and as an author
yeah,
generally. That's a beautiful one. I myself can relate to it as well. I can.
yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many tools that you need to have as an author.
Yeah,
Um, and just you just have to pick them up as you go along, and then some books are
absolutely.
your learning ground, which are
Yeah,
can be really frustrating.
yeah, that's true. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that lovely answer. And I wanted to ask you, as somebody who has written two books, if you want to agree with me that one of the things that stuck with writing the most, as per se, me, a reader and a writer, one of the things that I love the most is to sit back, fold my hands, grab a cup of coffee, and listen to readers' feedback. You may want to agree with me that one of the things that makes literature to be quite complex is the fact that it can be interpreted in different ways by different readers based on their opinions. And sometimes the readers might get a message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting the message. Sometimes they might be far, say several kilometers or miles away from getting the message. And most of the time, they might hilariously misunderstand the book and interpret it upside down. As hilariously fun as they sound, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your work differently or slightly differently from what you intended as an author? How does that make you feel as a storyteller?
I think it's a really nice feeling, and it's kind of a good sign that you've created a full world that's open for multiple interpretations.
Oh, wow, I
And then
love that.
I've had a couple of nice moments where people have come up to me and just mentioned and like said that they really connected with a moment either from Folkston or Habits of Squirrels that I just sort of thought was a passing moment between two other impactful moments. And they've connected with it and said that it really, they took a lot from it. And it's just hopefully a good sign that that
Yeah.
moment is, even though it's not one of, a moment that was big for me, is still sort
Mm,
of full-bodied and really exists on the page and
yeah.
has the little details that help people connect with,
Mm.
storytelling.
That's a beautiful one, really. I love your take on that. That's amazing. And I love that statement. You've created a couple of words for human interpretation. You've created something and leave it on for human to interpret it in whatever way they wanted to make it, in whatever way that fit deem for them. I think that's a beautiful one, really. Thank you for sharing with us, Brian. This is really impressive. And just apart from the books we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works you've authored or still currently working on?
Yep. So right now, Folkston just came out in March, which I guess about 2 months ago,
Wow.
maybe, and then maybe 3 months now, and then Habits of Squirrels has been out for 3 years. That's the extent of what I have published and out there right now. I am taking notes on my phone just as ideas come to me, and I'm starting to
Mm,
hopefully flesh out what will be a third novel, but it would be
wow.
a few years down the line.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's a lovely one, really. Thank you for sharing. And just in case we have some viewers who are watching, first of all, I would like to get your advice, any advice or word of encouragement that you have for other people out there, because there's quite a lot of people who wanted to write a book, who wish to become an author. It's an imagination in their head. Yeah, I would like to be an author. I'd love to have my name inscripted in the front page of a book and carry it to myself like a baby. Yeah, but they never do it, maybe because of time or whatsoever reason. But what would you give people in this category? What word would you give out? Let's just hear from you as an author.
So this is pretty kind of basic advice, but just don't let, I mean, it's such a big undertaking to write a book and to
Yeah.
get a book out into the world. And I think that it does, I mean, it paralyzed me for a long time, and it can paralyze or intimidate a lot of people. And just the only way I figured out to overcome that is just to sort of do what you can do today and try and do something every day, even if it's not really even writing, even like if
Mm,
they're just um something that you're not sure about, be like grammar
yeah.
or wherever you are in the process, just a storytelling thing. Just look that up and read it. Obviously eventually you have to sit down and write, which
Mm,
getting yourself to sit down and write at the computer when I'd just rather do anything else in the world than sit down and do
wow.
it. The trick to do that, but just make little steps every day, and try and just keep your feet moving, and you will eventually get there. It's not
Mm,
a particularly sexy answer or sexy process, but yeah, I mean,
mm,
it's if you think about just everything that you're going to have to do to get from a blank Word document to a
mm.
physical book that you're holding, you're just not going to be able to process that. So just do what you can do in this
Wow.
in your sitting. Yeah.
That's an amazing advice, really. And I'm hoping that viewers, even including myself, would love to utilize it. So thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And just in case we have some viewers who are watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of any of your books. On what platform are they available on for purchase?
They're both available pretty much everywhere. They're available on Amazon as paperbacks and as Kindles. They're available on my website, brianlivingstonbooks.com. If you're in the American Southeast, they're in
Mm,
most of the bookstores around the Southeast. And then really happy with this one. There's a website called bookshop.org where you can order books from and then pick which sort of local or independent bookstore you want it to be
mm,
sort of attributed to.
yeah,
So that's a really good option that's come along in the past few years for purchasing books.
that's amazing. I like you to raise the book again to the camera one after the other, just so we
Yep.
see the last time what it
So we
looks
got
like. Beautiful cover,
Folkston, the new
Folkston.
book, just came out in March that we've been
Yeah,
talking about here today. And then
congratulations on that.
we have The Habits of Squirrels. You'll see some similarities in the
Oh
art.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
similarity in the in both covers.
Yep. And you'll see there's a hiking trail on the cover here.
Oh,
This is inspired by my thru-hike of the Appalachian Trail. And it's
oh,
yeah, it follows a retired mailman using a through hike to sort of get his mindset for retirement.
that's quite
Yeah.
amazing, really. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Brian Livingston's both books, The Habit of Squirrel and Foxton, directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on his website and the aforementioned site as well. I also left link to his social media pages for possible followings. So thank you very much, Brian, for coming up on the show to sit down with me and have a conversation around your book. This is really impressive. This is really lovely, and I must say I enjoyed talking with you around Foxton. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always love talking about my books and
Yeah,
meeting new people.
yeah, it's my pleasure as well.